Are you a beginner looking for some hints and help for your new crochet hobby? Or maybe you're an advanced crocheter just interested in how you can streamline some of your techniques? Well, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see many more handy tips and some free tutorials over on my YouTube channel. I've been crocheting since lockdown, probably like most people, and through my journey I've picked up quite a few hints and tips that I now use pretty much every time I crochet. I've developed so much so that I am now creating my very own crochet patterns. So in today's video I thought I would share my handy tips that have helped me develop my crochet. So the tips I'm going to share with you today will help you not only to create better crochet projects, they'll save you time and ultimately save you quite a few headaches. First tip today is how to chain a starting chain. So this one is for those of you who do their starting chains and then it somehow ends up shorter than the rest of your piece, kind of like a trapezium shape. This normally happens due to the tension of the chains being tighter than the rest of the piece. So this first tip is going to help solve that problem for the rest of your future projects. This is called a chainless foundation chain and has seriously been my saving grace whenever I've done projects such as blankets or sweaters, and this really alleviates the problem of your chain in the first row being a different tension to the rest of your project. So how to do it is we're going to start by making 2 chains. We then insert our hook into this first chain, we draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through the very first loop only. This is a really important stitch as it is now the chain you're going to work into for the next stitch. So to complete the first stitch, we then yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. So that is the very first foundation single crochet. The next stitch we're going to work back into the chain space we made from the previous stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, then yarn over and pull through both loops. We then keep repeating this pattern until you get your required stitch count or your wanted measurement. The great thing about this technique is you don't have to just do this with a single crochet, but it also works really well with double and treble crochet. Another amazing thing about this chainless foundation chain is it is super flexible and stretchy, and if you've done a starting chain before, you're probably aware that the series of chains you make in the first row aren't too stretchy or forgiving at all. A great tip to do when you do this technique is to keep your tension just a little bit looser to give those stitches a little bit of room to stretch and breathe. So for any projects you're looking to make and want to have that stretch, this technique is great for that. The next tip I swear by is reducing the amount of sewing I must do. As most of you probably know, I am not a keen sewer at all. However, I do it when I need to, but if I can reduce the amount I need to do at the end of a project, I will. But my go-to technique I like to implement with pretty much all of my written patterns that you can see on my Etsy store is crocheting the limbs on as I go. This is a super method and it can be picked up so easily and really quickly, and it took me way too long to implement this technique myself. All you have to remember is to make your amigurumi limbs before you start your body.
I'm going to line them up like so, and we're basically just going to single crochet through both parts. I'm going to go through this first single crochet in the leg, so I've pulled the first single crochet in this leg. I'm then going to go through one of the loops on the body, so I have my hook through both the leg and the body like so. Just like any normal single crochet, I'm going to yarn over and pull through both the body and the leg. So I've got my 2 loops as normal and we're going to yarn over and pull through. So I have my first single crochet in my body and my leg. And we're just going to carry on making sure we're going through both the leg and the body, and we're going to do 6 single crochets in total. I've shown you how to attach your limbs to your body and crochet as you go. This is a really good way for people like myself who aren't overly keen on sewing their limbs on, as I just find it a proper faff, and it makes it really easy, really secure, and it just works up really nicely.
So this next tip is the mattress stitch for sewing things together, and this can be used on all sorts of different assemblies, such as sewing your amigurumi head onto your body, but in today's video I'm going to show you it with some granny squares. And this is a really great way to join things together using an invisible seam stitch. It is also known as a mattress stitch or a lattice stitch, but the greatest thing about this is if you do it correctly, you are not going to be able to see the seam at all. It is completely invisible.
You can either leave a long tail on one of your granny squares to use that to sew up the seam, or you can just use a length of yarn that isn't attached to either. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your granny squares together with the wrong sides facing each other, and we're going to take our needle up through the centre of the opposite stitch. So working into our V-shaped stitches right through the middle. So we take our needle down into the centre of our V stitch and bring it up through the centre of the next stitch. We then go to our second granny square and do the same. So we're working across the stitches and doing the exact same thing on the other side. So you're going to take your needle into the centre of the stitch, directly across where our yarn is coming up from, then go across and put your needle into the centre of the next stitch. And we're going to repeat this all the way across the granny squares, working into the middle of the stitches all the way across. Once we get to the end, we can then pull gently to close, and then this is our final result.
And I just love how clean and professional this method instantly makes your projects. The next tip we're going to do is how to go from a cone head to a normal head. So if you're familiar with amigurumi, you may be aware that quite often the head or a circle you're creating can sometimes come out a little bit pointy. And this is often because of the first round. So it's a really simple fix. You'll more than likely see most amigurumi patterns starting like this. 6 single crochets in a magic ring. And then round 2 is 6 increases. I am still guilty of using this starting sequence in many of my patterns. However, I have started to adapt this now, and all I basically do is skip that first round and go straight to my second round. So for example, in this instance, we want to do 12 single crochets in our second round. So we're going to do 12 single crochets in our magic ring instead. And then you continue with the pattern as normal, and here you can see the difference in how much more flat and how much more round it is than the first example. This next tip is going to look into how we can change colours seamlessly. Quite often with the way stitches are when we crochet, they cause this jaggedy colour change. However, sometimes we want to get a straight, slick colour change. But how do we do that? In order to get that straight colour change, I'm going to show you how.
So the way I like to do my slick colour changes is, first of all, we need to change our colour. So going back to our previous stitch and pulling through with our new colour, we're then going to proceed with this new colour and work in the back loops of the previous round. And we're going to be just doing slip stitches. So for our first colour change round, we're going to be doing slip stitches in the back loops of our previous round. And we're going to do this all the way around until we get back to our starting stitch. And once we've done all our slip stitches in the back loops, making sure to keep them relatively loose to make sure we're not tightening our project, we're then going to go back to single crocheting, but again working in the back loops of the slip stitches that we've just created. And as you can start to see, this is creating a really lovely slick colour change and a really nice straight edge in between that orange and turquoise. And that is simply it. The secret is to work in the back loops of the stitches. And once you've done those 2 rounds, you can then proceed by working into both loops for the rest of your project.
If you enjoyed these tips, be sure to leave a comment below on which one was your favourite and which you found most helpful. Or if you have any tips for the community, feel free to share them also. Thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate the support, and I'll see you in the next video.